Closing the eyes. Letting yourself come into this space. This space of practice. This space of curiosity, of acceptance. This space of the body. This body just as it is right now. Beginning tonight by bringing awareness to the bottoms of the feet. Maybe the feet are touching the ground. Maybe they're touching your legs. Just feeling the bottoms of the feet as they are. And bringing awareness into the ankles. As if you're moving through the body, shining a spotlight on the different parts we explore. Feeling, noticing the lower legs.
I just know what Mike told me on Friday. I'd like to call one.
Noticing the knees. And the upper legs, the thighs, just bringing attention to it. Nothing special needs to be happening. There's nothing to do. Just see if your awareness can land in the thighs. And then feeling the buttocks. Noticing contact, noticing temperature perhaps. All these parts of the body we notice only because there are sensations there. Really all we're noticing is sensation. And then bringing awareness to the lower back, just as it is, seeing it's there. The mid-back. And the upper back. Noticing the back of the neck. No story, no judgment, nothing to do or fix. Just residing awareness here. Feeling the back of the head. The top of the head. And bringing awareness to the forehead and the brow. Feeling the eyes. The ears. Sensation in ears being known. Feeling the nose. The mouth. tongue, and the whole face. Bring your awareness to your throat. And the front of your neck, the sides of your neck. Onto the tops of the shoulders. Feeling into the shoulders, whatever's there. Feeling down the upper arms, into the elbows, the forearms, and feeling the hands, the backs, palms, every finger. Feeling into the genitals, the groins, awareness now of the pelvis, and the belly. The ribs and solar plexus, and bringing awareness into the heart center, into the chest. And let the awareness that's resting in the chest radiate out from the chest to include the whole body. Let the whole body be filled with awareness, and let the whole body be your instrument of awareness. Awareness is in the whole body. And then letting awareness to expand to include all the space around the body as well. As if the body were a satellite of awareness. And this awareness perceives sound, perceives sensation, smell, taste, touch. If the eyes are open, sight. Awareness is aware of thoughts and emotions and memories and images. Anything that is known is appropriate to be explored in this field of awareness. Aware of it all in a present sense experience, So even thoughts can be known when you get engaged in the content of the thought. You're moving away from now thinking is happening to something about the past or the future. So try to refrain from getting lost in the stories of thought by being present to what is being experienced by awareness right now, right here. No preferences. Awareness simply knows what's here. Curiosity can find some understanding in what's here. Not to look for anything, not to make anything happen. Just to really know the truth of things as they are. Resistance can be felt. Clinging can be felt. Suffering can be felt. Staying connected in awareness so that nothing that comes into the field of awareness takes over. Awareness is just aware of it for what it is. First, I want to congratulate you for making it back after last week. You weren't here last week. It was a challenging class. So if you're not scared off yet, there's high hopes for you. Last week pretty much ended all the instruction on Vipassana. So what are we still doing here? Today it's kind of like the prequel, and we're gonna talk today about all the practices that you can do to prepare the body and mind. So everything you do before you sit down to meditate. Mindfulness practices, but more active practices that are very intentionally trying to center the mind and to cultivate a certain amount of concentration so that when you sit down and start to pay attention, you're not as scattered. Would have been nice to start there. But we have a lot of those that I'm going to cover today. And so it's going to be just practice, not a lot of time for discussion. Okay? Some of the practices are from Buddhist traditions, some are from different Buddhist traditions, some are from various yogic traditions. Some of them may be familiar to some of you. Not all of them are going to be good for all of you. Some of them are energizing, some of them are more calming. It's good to know when you sit down what you need. To just assess, is my energy low? I'll give you some practices to do to raise the energy in case the energy is low. If the energy is kind of hyper or scattered, or the nervous system is a little bit frayed, then there'll be some practices to do to calm the nervous system down. And then some generally balancing practices if you're not finding neither here nor there, but you still can benefit from some centering. So the first one of these practices is what we did to begin this last meditation. And it's just a basic body scan. Has anybody done a body scan before? Yeah, it's a pretty universally known tool for kind of getting in the body and letting the mind settle. Sometimes it's done even more actively, where with each part that you bring your attention to, you flex it and tighten those muscles and then let it go so that there's a relaxation that's happening there. And you're welcome to try that. I'm not going to guide that tonight, but you can experiment with that on your own. And generally with body scans, some people like to start at the top of the head. Some people like to start at the feet. I don't have any recommendation. I would say whatever feels right to you. You can experiment with different ways of doing it. And just go through it. You can see if going slower is more helpful, if going faster is more helpful. I would recommend picking a pace that doesn't allow a lot of time for judgment or fixing. Just to notice what's there. Long enough to actually take in what's there, but not long enough to get lost in what's there. Just to have the awareness and let it go as you move on to the next place. So it's a nice little practice of focused awareness and letting go, and focused awareness and letting go. Overall, creating a sense of continuity in mindfulness as you move from place to place. Any questions about that? Great. So another practice that I'll recommend that we're not going to do today is any kind of yoga that you like to do is really, really effective to do immediately before meditation. Yoga will already help center the mind and also open the body for the free flow of energy. And you'll find that, at least I find that meditation is a lot easier if I do it immediately after a yoga practice. So if you already have some yoga practice, even 5 or 10 minutes of simple stretches can just help prepare the body and mind. So the first one that we're going to talk about is from the yoga tradition, and it's a type of breathing called ujjayi breath. So if you've done any kinds of vinyasa yoga or ashtanga yoga, you're probably familiar with this breath. Many of you probably are not, and I'm happy to go over it now. I think it's an absolutely excellent tool to use to calm and center the mind. A few weeks ago, I mentioned the movie, the documentary about practicing with veterans and treating them with PTSD. One of the things they use is this breathing. I did a research study many years ago working with people over at Balboa Naval Hospital that had a lot of chronic pain and chronic fatigue and sleep problems. And I did gentle yoga with them, and I taught them all this breathing. And at the end of the study, everybody pretty much unanimously said that the most helpful thing of everything was this breath. I use it if I can't fall asleep. 2 minutes of ujjayi breathing is pretty good. So it's great to do first thing in the morning, great to do last thing before you go to bed, and great to do before you sit down and meditate. So it's a breath that comes in and out through the nose. So it's not that foreign. It's just a basic inhale and exhale. The way that this breath is distinguished is that normally when we breathe through the nose, we create a little bit of a pull to take the breath in, and that pull is happening, we feel it in the nasal passages. That's where the suction is coming. So you can just take a breath, like a really deliberate inhale, and you can feel there's a little bit of vibration in your nose. So let's just close the eyes and just feel how the nose has a slight sense of vibration from that inhale. And then you can feel it on the exhale as well. So that's how we tend to breathe, most of us. In ujjayi breath, the place where we're pulling the breath in is happening at the base of the throat. So you can start experimenting with what that feels like with an open mouth and just go like this. If you're doing it right, you'll feel the air very cool in the back of your throat. And you'll have a particular sound that's almost like the sound of the ocean. Okay, now it's the same breath as that, only with the mouth closed. The sucking in is still happening there, and the sound is still gonna come out in a similar way. But with the mouth closed, it's an even slower, longer, smoother breath. So you want to feel like the nose is passive. You might close your eyes just to see if there's the presence or the absence of that vibration in the nose that we felt before. You don't want to feel any of that in the nose. Another thing that you might feel, and you can use a finger and just place it at the notch below the throat, kind of where an Adam's apple is, for those who have those. So there are these two little notches here where the collarbones come toward each other, and inside those notches, if you place a finger And then you do this breath, you'll feel it hollowing out there. It's the low part of the throat, just below kind of the gritty part of the throat where there's just soft tissue, just kind of skin draping over the collarbones. Okay, so this is important enough that if you're not sure if you have it, I'd like you to raise your hand because I can come over and listen to the sound and know if you're doing it correct. So if you're not sure at all, please raise your hand. No, that's in your nose. See the whistle? That's coming from your nose. Right here. Try with your mouth. Let me hear it with the mouth. Keep practicing with the mouth for a few more breaths and then close your mouth. We'll collect you. Let me hear it with the mouth. It's okay. I'm still doing the same exact job as I was doing with the mouth. Everything's the same except the mouth. There you go. You got it. That's totally my nose. Listen to that. See how your nostrils are carried? Stay with your mouth open.
Just feel when you breathe in, just feels a little tight right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there anybody in here? Okay. Yep. Any other hands in here? Okay. Keep doing it. Those of you who have it, just keep practicing. Just keep doing it. You got it. Ready? Sure. That's your nose. Do it without it. Do it several times with your mouth open and then just trick yourself. Open your mouth. You're kind of cutting it short. Relax your belly. Don't push on your fingers. Let's go. That's it. Oh, that's your nose. Stay in the throat. Do this. Start it with your mouth open. Then close your mouth like that. Try it again. still breathing in. That's better. No, it's going in.
Yeah, it is. I have a nose plug or what?
Keep your awareness.
That is such a relief.
Yeah.
Because I never was formally taught ujjayi, but I always thought like I constricted my nose and it made it like I didn't feel like I was getting as much oxygen. So I just feel like I'm suffocating. And
Yeah.
I never liked it.
Yeah.
But this is totally different.
Yeah, you get the same amount of air. It just takes longer to come in because of the narrowing at the throat. And
But it's much more than when you constrict the nasal.
yeah,
Which is what I was doing.
yeah. So it tends to be a slower breath. It also tends to kind of flood the body with oxygen a little bit better. When you use this breath, for instance, when you're practicing yoga, if you're ever in a class and a teacher says, breathe into your blank, your shoulder, your ribs, your hip, your foot, things that sound completely crazy because there are no lungs in your shoulder or your foot. When you start doing this breath, it feels like you can get breath everywhere in your body and that you can actually start to move energy into places that are stagnant and needing that space. Yes.
I remember you saying in one of the earlier sessions to not use ujjayi when you're meditating. And
Correct.
Sometimes I find it hard to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if I were to practice it beforehand. So
Yeah.
how do you relax that once you start doing it? Yes.
Yeah. So the question was, the statement was that when she does ujjayi breath, she finds it hard to stop. Because I did mention not to use the ujjayi breath during the meditation itself, and how do you transition from ujjayi to not? Maybe use one of the other practices that I'll talk about as an intervening thing, even just for a moment. If you're familiar with ujjayi breath and you practice it a lot, it is very habit forming. It's one of the best habits you can get into, but it is really habit forming. And, when I started meditating, that's what I was doing. I was doing ujjayi breath the whole time. And then it was hard to stop. We'll see if any of these are helpful for you.
Why is it detrimental to meditation?
It's not detrimental to meditation when you meditate on the breath and the breath alone, and you're trying to get your mind to concentrate. Even then, it's actually not recommended to do a controlled breath, but it's certainly not harmful. But when you're trying to practice bringing awareness to things as they are, you're trying not to control the things that are. So one of the things that we don't want to control when we're meditating is the breath.
We want to be anchorless.
Anchorless. You can have an anchor. Your mind can find refuge in your breath, but the breath as it is. Yeah. Because the breath as it is, or the sounds or the sensations or whatever, are still always there and still always something the mind can rest in. You don't have to manipulate it to offer that.
When I'm doing that, I know why I don't. It's because every time the air goes through my sinuses, it just itches all over the place, which makes it, I breathe from down here and I bypass my sinuses entirely.
Yeah.
I can feel it's so much more air,
Yeah.
but kind of it's distracting in a sense.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I become very aware of how much my nose,
Huh.
I don't know.
Is this the first time you've practiced this breath?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't breathe through my nose regularly either. I breathe down.
Right.
here.
Right, but the air always has to come in through one of the orifices,
Right.
either the mouth or the nose. And when you're doing ujjayi breath, you're still able to breathe deep into your belly or do even a complete yogic breath, belly, ribs, chest. You can breathe into the same parts and use the same mechanisms of breathing that you normally do once the means of taking the air in becomes familiar to you. It's just the constriction that's really different.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, air has to come in order for you to breathe. It's going to come in through the mouth or the nose.
When I do it in the mouth, it's perfectly fantastic.
Yeah.
But
Do it
when
through
I
the
go
mouth.
my nose, because it does go through the sinus cavity down to my throat.
If you
opposed
do
to
it
just,
correctly,
like,
if you do it correctly, you probably won't feel that.
really.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it does kind of bypass all this. But on the other hand, if doing it through your mouth is working for you, do it through your mouth and don't worry about doing it through your nose. It can be very dehydrating to do it through your mouth. And also the reason why we breathe through the nose is because it's healthier. We have all the little hairs in the nose that help filter out the impurities in the air that, you know, you breathe in if you breathe through your mouth. But whatever works. And if none of it works, you know, there's 4 more.
Yeah.
Okay? Are we ready to move on?
Yeah.
Okay. Ujjayi, check. So, this is another breathing from the yoga tradition, and it's called alternate nostril breath, and it's really, really fantastic for focusing the mind and for settling and balancing the energies. So generally, when you breathe through the right side, it's considered activating or energizing. And when you breathe through the left side, it's considered calming. It's almost like the left nostril is related to the right body, the more feminine or yin aspect of us. And the right nostril is related to the left brain, the left body, the more yang or masculine, energetic side. So one thing that you can do if you know that your energy is kind of low, if you tend toward sluggishness, fatigue, depression, just perhaps in that moment you're feeling kind of a little dark or blue or tired, then you can purposely breathe through the right nostril. I'll show you the technique in a minute. It's not that important. You can basically find your own way into it. But you can inhale through the right and exhale through the left. Inhale through the right and exhale through the left if you need to energize. If you need to calm, if you tend to be restless or worried or anxious or hyper or just having a lot of energy, you ate some chocolate, whatever it is. If you need to calm the body down, inhale through the left, exhale through the right. Inhale through the left, exhale through the right. So this is not an alternate nostril breath. This is a single-sided breath, depending on what you need in that particular moment. If you're fairly balanced, if there's not a need for either one of those, alternate nostril breath is perfect. So I'll show you the technique that I like. It's not the one that's commonly taught, so if you know a different one, feel free to use it. If you want to make up your own, that's great too. Generally, it's done with the right hand. If that's not working for you, you can do the left. I believe that the reason why they do it with the right hand is to leave the heart space open on the left side. The left hand can be resting on your leg, or you can take a little mudra that is used commonly in yoga with the index finger to the thumb, like an OK sign, and just rest that on your hand. It kind of helps contain the energy. If you become or are already sensitive to energies, you can actually notice the difference between an open hand facing up, an open hand facing down, or taking this mudra facing up or facing down. So for now, you can just take my word for it or not do it at all if you don't want to. So the way that I practice this, and I'm going to show you the alternate nostril version, and then the single variations will be apparent. I like to bring the first two fingers of my right hand onto the third eye, this point between the brows, and rest there. And then the thumb rests on the right nostril, and the remaining two fingers rest on the left nostril. Now, if you just let your thumb and your fingers rest on the nostrils, and you breathe in and out through the nostrils, you might be able to feel a slight vibration at the nostrils. Maybe, maybe not. It's not important if you do. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with an inhale. And you can close your eyes and you can bring your inner eye, so to speak, to your third eye. So you can bring your inner gaze to that point where your forefinger and middle finger are resting. And then after you take a breath in, seal off your right nostril with your thumb and breathe out of your left nostril, keeping those fingers resting on it. And then breathe in through the left nostril, seal it off, and breathe out through the right nostril, keeping your thumb resting on it. And the reason why I suggest keeping the fingers and the thumb resting on it is because it helps keep the breath a little bit more narrow. It almost does what ujjayi does, not quite, but it slightly constricts the breath and slows it down. So you switch sides on every exhalation. As you exhale, you seal off and you breathe out the other side, and then you breathe in through that same side. And then to exhale, you switch sides. See if the eyes at least can be still. Wherever they're resting, let them be still. Now let's practice right nostril breathing. Inhaling through the right and exhaling through the left. Inhaling through the right. Exhaling left. Continuing like that. And then let's practice left nostril breathing. Inhaling through the left. Exhaling through the right. Inhale left. And then back to alternate nostril. And then release your hands, keep the eyes closed. Sit quietly for a few moments, noticing how you feel. breathing become natural and effortless.
I know that your breathing changes automatically, like we switch between nostrils throughout the day, and doing this type of breathing notices it. But why does the body get stuck on one or the other? Is it like, so for example, if the body's stuck in your left nostril breathing, is it because you need it, or is it because you're down and it's doing what's the reflection of your, I don't know, does that make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
I've wondered that myself. I don't really know. You know, I mean, generally they say that you do alternate throughout the day, usually every 30 minutes. You'll have one nostril breathing more dominantly than the other. But if you find that you tend to always breathe through one side or the other, just notice the correlation between the side that you're breathing through and your energy/mood state. You know, so if you tend to find you're always breathing through the left side, then you're likely to find that you tend to be low energy. And whether you're, then I would say that probably it's not that you're needing that, but rather that the right side is what's stuck. But that's just a guess. I have no idea.
I asked my ENT about this one time, and he said that one side of your nose is always resting, and when it's doing something while it's resting, I don't know exactly what it is, but it changes back and forth, and it's normal for that to be that way.
Yeah, totally.
It has a name. I don't remember the name, but it does have a name now. It's not clear.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
But you know, if you start to pay attention and see either that throughout the day you're tending to breathe with one particular side as dominant, at the end of the day, do some breathing through the other side intentionally.
It's kind of hard to actually identify which one you're breathing out of. At least I was trying to before we did the exercise. But it would be neat to know, like, if you're in a high energy state, like, okay, which side is my body, going
Right.
to the left to try to calm down, or is it just, like,
Right.
super energized and keep feeding it?
Right.
So I'll see if I can figure it out.
I think when you pay attention to it, you'll actually be able to see. I think it's pretty noticeable which nostril is dominant.
If you have a stuffy nose, you'll know.
Exactly.
Stuffy on
In
the
that
other
case,
side,
it's
it will
very
rotate.
easy.
Yeah.
That's just blood flow. Yeah.
This breathing technique's really good for helping when you have a stuffy nose too.
Yeah. The other thing I want to say about it is that if you are practicing just left nostril breathing or just right nostril breathing as a remedy for what you need in that moment, always finish up by doing alternate nostril breathing. So there's the balance at the end of that. You don't have to start with the alternate like we did and then do the single and end with the alternate. Just do the single as needed and then the alternate, or just do the alternate. That should probably be fine. Okay? All right. So the next one is, I think I'll skip that for now until it cools off in here a little bit because it's heating. So the next one is also a breath exercise. And the nice thing about this one is it also engages the mind because there's counting involved. People like counting a lot. So generally, this is a breath that's great to be combined with ujjayi breath, but it doesn't have to be. Thank you. So if ujjayi breath becomes or is something that's comfortable for you, then when you're doing this next breath, use ujjayi or not. You can breathe however you're comfortable. You'll still get benefit from it. So basically, there's 4 phases of the breath. There's an inhale, there's a retention, there's an exhale, and there's a retention. Usually the retentions are non-discernible. Usually there's just an inhale and an exhale. Sometimes if you're paying really close attention, you might notice a pause between the inhale and the exhale. So we're just going to accentuate the pause after the inhale. And we're going to regulate the breath, exactly opposite of what you want to do in meditation. So again, it's another one of those things that you're doing and then you have to let go of. So generally, the inhale is energizing and the exhale is calming. Generally, prolonging the exhale is even more calming. So one of the things that I like to practice is to exhale for exactly twice as long as the inhale. So let's say I'm inhaling for a count of 3, I'll exhale for a count of 6. Not everybody can exhale that long, so you might try 1.5 times. If you're inhaling for a count of 4, exhale for a count of 6. Okay? The other thing that we're going to work with is the retention in the middle. And how long you hold the breath determines whether it's energizing or calming. So if you hold the breath for a shorter period of time, let's say the same amount of time as your inhale, it's considered energizing. If you hold it a longer period of time, like the amount of your exhale or maybe even longer, it's calming. So again, this is another one of those things where you can assess what you need and use the breath accordingly. So if you're feeling pretty balanced when you sit down to meditate, you still generally want that exhale to be longer than the inhale for a little bit of a calming effect. And then if you need more of a calming effect, don't hold the breath for a short period, but for a longer period. And if you can't hold it for a longer period and you're finding that the short hold is energizing in a way that's not agreeable to you, don't do the breath. Usually a little bit of energy and a little bit of calming are really useful for meditation. All of these breaths, the ujjayi breath and the alternate nostril breath, they create a sense of alertness for the mind and a sense of calming for the nervous system. We're basically switching from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system. So we're going to try the basic level of breath retention. And I think I'll start off with an inhale of 3, a hold for 3, and an exhale for 6. If you can't do the exhale for 6, try to do it for at least 3 or longer.
What I wind up doing when I do that is that I'll inhale a lot faster and more when I'm doing the inhale, like my pace is faster, and then I try to breathe out.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I'm breathing out less,
Right.
even though I'm doing it longer,
Right.
and then I'm just sucking up as much air as I can. Is that
Right. You're trying to cheat.
Yeah, I'm cheating. So no cheating.
Yeah, a lot of people cheat by going
What do you do?
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Not that kind of cheating. I'll keep the timing the same.
Okay,
But I'm taking in a quicker volume of air,
right.
and I'm slowing down my exhalation so that I'm not breathing out as much air because I can't really do it that long.
Yeah, which is actually okay.
That
Because
works okay?
the exhale is slowed down. It's not that you're exhaling more volume than you're inhaling. You're always going to exhale the same volume that you inhale. Unless some
So
people...
it's okay if I'm, and then I'm, like, just...
Yes and no. It's okay that the exhale isn't more, but just slower. But the inhale, probably best not to go... Yeah.
I was exaggerating, but to some extent, yes.
Yeah, and that's why the ujjayi breath is useful, because it'll automatically slow down that inhale for you. You know, just a regular comfortable inhale done with ujjayi breathing is going to be a few seconds long, naturally.
But the only pause that matters is the one when you're holding the breath, not when you're...
No, I'm going to get to the other one, but one hard thing at a time. So, I'm going to count it out, and so you're not going to be able to do what you're inclined to do, and you'll just see how that feels.
Okay.
Okay? So, if you're not able to do the three, three, and 6, then you're going to just ignore my counting. But I want you to maintain the 3, maintain the next 3 if you can, and then maintain the same amount on the exhale that you're comfortable with. I think 6 is fairly doable. Yeah? And then we're going to talk about the retention after the exhale. All right? So I always invite you to close your eyes. It kind of helps to see what's going on inside of you and to bring your attention to where you need your focus on this new practice. And so let's just start together with a regular inhale and exhale. In and out. Okay. And inhale, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In, hold, out, in, hold, out. Now on your own. As you're doing it on your own, you can experiment with 4, 4, and 8. Or 4, 4, and 6. Now at the end of your exhale, pause for the count of 2. If the second hold, the one after the exhale, can be longer, you can pause there not to the same length as your first pause. And then let the breathing go and just sit quietly, aware of all that there is to be aware of. Letting the breath flow naturally and effortlessly.
What's the point of holding it on after you exhale?
For me, it seems to really make space in my being. I would say experiment and explore it and see what it does, how it feels. You know, it's almost like in that moment you're connecting with emptiness. There's nothing. There's not the in-breath, there's not the holding, there's not the out-breath. There's a moment of stillness. Because holding the breath out is really, even though it's a doing, there's nothing that you're working with. You know?
I love the awareness that I don't need that breath.
Yeah.
Program to go
Yeah.
at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
Just to
Exactly.
remind myself that.
Yeah. It's a great practice, particularly if you tend toward greediness. And, you know, the things that we talked about last time. You might notice if you're somebody who is always reaching for the next thing, that it shows up in your breath. That as soon as the exhale is done, you're like clamoring for the next in-breath.
Yeah, that's why I asked, because I thought this was a panic. Like, oh, I'm in the air. I need to breathe.
Yeah, and it'll get easier. But in the meanwhile, notice the panic. And notice, like he said, you don't actually need that next breath in that minute, in that second.
How long do you hold is it a long hold, like if you do 3, 6, and then 6 exhaling? How long is the space also 6?
The space at the end of the exhale
Yeah.
can be as little as 1 or 2 counts,
Mm-hmm.
and as much as whatever the pause is that you're taking after the inhale. So if you're doing an inhale of 3, a hold for 3, an exhale of 6, a hold for 3.
But if you're doing 4 up there,
4, 4, 8, 4. And again, if the exhale can't be twice as long as the inhale, that's fine. 4, 4, 6, 4.
how about 3, 6, 6, 6?
3, 6, 6. 6 is fine if you can do it. If you can hold the breath out for 6,
After exhaling.
That's a lot.
that's hard.
Yeah.
That's hard. I was training myself for a while very actively in this breath to the point where one whole breath cycle was 1 minute and 10 seconds. So I was doing an inhale for 10 and then a hold for 40 and then an exhale for 20 and then a hold for 10. Maybe that's 1 minute 20 seconds. But that's what I was doing.
hold for 10.
A hold for 10. But it took me a while. It's difficult.
But your hold is shorter than your
My hold after the
exhale.
exhale
Shorter
is
than,
shorter than the hold after the inhale.
Yeah.
I think it's probably impossible to do it as long.
Yeah.
I don't know. Seems harder.
No, when you're in
Wait,
the
passed
40s.
out. That would be a nice one.
For each of these type of practices, how long is a good amount of time to do them?
Couple minutes.
Just a quick.
Yeah, couple minutes. 2 to 5 minutes. Depending on how much time you have. The more you do it, the more quiet and centered and focused you'll be when you start the actual meditation. See how much time you have and notice if it feels particularly better to do 4 minutes versus 2 minutes.
You mentioned in your email, because I wasn't here last week, so I was reading your email, and you said something about people who tend towards wanting,
Right.
tend to hold on to bliss.
Yes.
And I know sometimes meditation, on a good day, I feel very blissed out.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking, is that a good time to stop? Because if I tend towards wanting, then I want to be blissed out. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
so sometimes with these breathing exercises, you do get kind of blissed out too.
You do
so.
kind of get blissed out. Yeah. Some teachers will say that if you cling to bliss, that if you're finding yourself blissed out and you're noticing that you're clinging to it, that you should stop. I think that short of that, you can open your awareness and see what else is there. So that bliss can be present, but that you're not focusing on it. The other thing that you can do, which is a nice buzzkill, is when you're seeing yourself clinging to the bliss, to bring your awareness to the clinging. And then there's not a lot of bliss in clinging. But that's what's happening now. Nuts. Yeah. Mm. So you don't have to actually stop. You can
Just notice that
you
you're
can get more and more insight by being aware of the way the mind is working. The way the mind wants the bliss, the things the mind does to get the bliss, the way the mind holds on to the bliss when the bliss is there, the way the mind is annoyed when the bliss is gone. Yeah.
Well, I like that you mentioned that because it made me realize that bliss wasn't the goal, but even if I wasn't feeling good in the meditation, that it was still meditation. Because
Oh,
I
yeah.
thought for a while that happy place was when I was doing it right.
Yeah.
So-
A lot of people think that. That they think if there are thoughts, I'm not meditating right. If I'm uncomfortable, I'm not, it's like we think of meditation as just this bright white light and anything short of that is, what's the point?
Bliss is mindless.
Generally, I mean,
So therefore, as soon as you put mind on it, it's gone.
you can be mindful of bliss. You can.
Mm.
Just like you can be mindful of thinking, but it's kind of advanced.
What?
It's kind of advanced. To be in bliss and be mindful of it. Often we get lost in bliss. So you're right. Bliss can generally give way to a mindlessness, but you can bring mindfulness to bliss. You can feel the sensations of bliss, be aware of what bliss feels like without being caught in it or lost in it in the same way we're caught or lost in thought or sound or discomfort or any of the other things. You can bring mindfulness to anything. And it doesn't necessarily, it's not necessarily mutually exclusive.
I just find it difficult because to me, as you bring mind to it, then it becomes a memory. It becomes a story about bliss. That's just what we're talking about, a story about bliss.
That's when you're bringing thinking to it.
As opposed to mind.
As opposed to mindfulness. Yeah.
Because mindful is not thinking.
Right. It's just awareness. You can have bliss and awareness of bliss. You're right. As soon as you're thinking, oh wow, I'm really blissed, there's no mindfulness. Yeah. Is anybody who is allergic to cats present?
I am, but the cat no longer
The
is.
cat
so
is-
I'm fine.
Okay.
Is it
All
kind
right.
of like peripheral vision? Like if somebody was throwing a baseball, you might never have to actually see them or really be aware of it. But out of the corner of your eye, your brain knows, and you can walk around it without really thinking about it at all.
Yeah.
So it's you're aware
Right.
without thinking.
Yeah. That's what we're shooting for. Aware without thinking. So, everything always takes longer than I think it's going to. If I did everything that I had on my paper every week that I wanted to cover, I'd be about 3 weeks behind now. So I just keep cutting and cutting. So, let's see. All right, here's one that I want to definitely go over. And it's one of the mindfulness practices from this tradition in Theravada Buddhism that I just kind of gave a tiny mention to 3 weeks ago. When we did compassion, I talked about how there were 4 heavenly abodes: loving kindness, compassion, joy, or sympathetic joy, and equanimity, or just balanced mind. As it happens, these are not just beautiful practices to help open the heart and to connect with other beings, to connect with ourselves, but they're also concentration practices. They're also practices to help focus the mind. So we're going to do the first one, the loving kindness practice. And there's quite a few ways to do loving kindness. I'll talk briefly about 2 of them. First, let me explain what loving kindness is in case you weren't here a few weeks ago. I mean, basically, loving kindness is just your heart's response to connecting with another being and wishing them well. Just like you would wish yourself well. Just making that connection and saying, I care about you, and you're another human being that has the same kinds of suffering that I have and the same kinds of conditions and experiences that I have generally. And just as I wish myself well, I wish you well. My heart feels kindness towards you. It feels warmth towards you. It feels appreciation for you being part of my human race. So it's just a very basic connection on a neutral level, whereas compassion is a connection that you make when somebody's suffering. And sympathetic joy is a connection that you make when somebody's really in a good place. You know? And so loving kindness is like the baseline connection that we have in our humanity. When we're not suffering, when we're not struggling, when we're not feeling separate than, or worse than, or better than, our heart's natural inclination is to feel love and kindness toward other beings. And yet, we often find that we're not in that state. That, we're grouchy or grumpy or not liking or feeling alone or feeling superior or feeling apathetic. I mean, these are also human conditions. So the nice thing about loving kindness is it can be purposefully cultivated. You can practice it. And you can practice it for yourself, and you can practice it for other people. You can practice it toward people that you naturally feel that way toward, and people that you don't feel that way toward, if you want to challenge your loving kindness muscle. Yeah. So, generally, loving kindness practice is done toward yourself, toward somebody that you consider like a benefactor, somebody that you care about, that cares about you, that has helped you, that it's natural and easy to feel kindness toward. And that person shouldn't be a lover, because the love relationship that you have with a lover is different than loving kindness, and it can get a little murky if you're using a lover in that particular category. So you practice toward yourself, you practice toward a benefactor, you practice toward a dear friend, you practice toward a neutral person, somebody that you don't know that well, your post worker, your checkout clerk, somebody that doesn't rub you the right way, doesn't particularly, make you happy, just neutral. And then you practice for a difficult person, and you practice for all beings. They say that you start with yourself because once upon a time, and probably very much so still in Asian cultures, people don't have the kinds of neuroses that we have in the West of self-hatred. It's been studied. In most parts of Asia, when you talk about self-hatred and those kinds of things, they're like, what are you talking about? They don't get it. It's just not an issue. It's not a concept.
Suicide? Or
What's that?
suicide rates, or just mental health?
Just
Depression?
generally one's self-regard is not, maybe because one's self-regard isn't emphasized,
It's an individual.
Yeah, but
They're not heavy on guilt.
Yeah.
In the West, we're guilt, lots of guilt.
I mean, I'm not trying to go off too much on cultural nuances. The point that I want to make is that the way it's taught has been taught for, centuries, if not thousands of years, and comes from the East. And so, in this day and age, in this culture, starting with yourself may not be the easy one. Yourself may be the difficult person. So we start with whatever's easiest. If yourself is the easiest, if you naturally have feelings of well-wishing for yourself, if it's easy to feel loving and kind toward yourself, begin with yourself. If it isn't, begin with the benefactor. Make sense? Mm-hmm. If you don't have a benefactor that's alive, it's okay to do it for someone who's dead. Some teachers will say it's not okay. I'm going to say it's okay. Okay? So there's two ways of practicing this. And one way is to use phrases, much like we did when we were doing the compassion practice a couple of weeks ago. I'm not going to do it that way. Okay? So if you're curious about doing loving kindness practice, what we call metta, M-E-T-T-A, and you're interested in learning more about it in terms of using the phrases, then you can find plenty of recordings online, or send me an email, and I'm happy to tell you how to do that. We just are out of time. Okay? So one thing about this is you want to be comfortable. So if you're on the floor and you're not comfortable, take a chair. If you're in a chair and you're not comfortable, lay down on the ground. You want your body to be relaxed so that there's no tension in the practice. Okay. So let's start by closing the eyes, feeling the body laying or sitting down, taking a deep breath in through the nose, exhaling out of the mouth, letting the body relax. And another deep breath in. Exhaling, letting the jaw relax. And another deep breath in. Exhaling out of the mouth. And just washing away any judgment, any expectation. Letting the mind relax. And then bring your attention to your heart center. If you like, you can imagine a light shining dimly in the center of your heart, glowing. And then calling to mind and maybe even bringing this person's image to your mind. Yourself or your benefactor. If you're bringing the image of yourself to mind, you might choose yourself at a time in your life where you'd particularly like to send loving kindness. So it doesn't have to be your present self. If it's your benefactor, just picture him or her. And notice the good feeling that you have in your heart toward this beautiful being that so deserves love and kindness, that deserves to be healthy and happy. Noticing how you want for this person peace and ease and well-being. And feel your heart swelling with this kind wishing. Feeling the light in your heart shining brighter. Bright with love. Bright with kindness. Just a real sense of endearment toward this being. This beautiful, special being that you have the honor and privilege of having in your life. You don't have to force anything. Just connect with the natural kindness, the natural well-wishing. If you're thinking of yourself, appreciate your own goodness. You might even recall something that you've done that exemplifies your own goodness. Or something your benefactor has done for you that helps you connect with his or her goodness and your own appreciation and your own wish that this person feel well and peaceful. Just letting your heart open to love. And then call to mind your benefactor if you were just working with yourself, or yourself if you were just working with your benefactor. If yourself is still feeling too difficult, stay with your benefactor. Again, it may be helpful to have an image of this person in your mind. And just letting your heart feel the tenderness, the care, the kindness, the appreciation, the goodness. Bringing in the light of your own heart, in the heart of this other beautiful being. And then calling to mind a dear friend, past or present, someone that you naturally feel warmly toward, that it's easy to wish well-being to. And just hold that friend in your heart with kindness, with love, with tenderness and warmth. Letting this metta radiate out from your heart to this beautiful being in your life. And then calling to mind a neutral person, knowing that just as you wish for yourself happiness and good health and good fortune and ease of being, you also wish this person that you don't know very well. Think of a particular person that you encounter in your life. Somebody whose face you may know even if you don't know their name. And know that they suffer just like you suffer. And they have struggles just like you have struggles. And just as you wish for yourself to be happy and peaceful, you wish that this person also be free of suffering. You care about this person as a human being, and the kindness in your own heart opens to extend well-wishing to this neutral person. And then call to mind a difficult person, not the most difficult person, not somebody that feels almost impossible to have well-wishing toward, but just somebody who's a little bit annoying perhaps, or that you've had a little bit of a rocky relationship with. And let his or her image come to your mind. And know that this person also deserves to be happy. This person also has suffering. Wouldn't it be nice if even this person had peace in his or her heart, had health in his or her body, had kindness and compassion, and lived with ease? And let your heart open to wanting that for this person as well. Knowing that your heart is big enough to include even this person. Your love is boundless. You can feel how huge this loving kindness is in your being. And then we extend it out in all directions to all beings everywhere. Those that walk on legs, those that swim in water, those that fly above us, those that crawl on bellies, all beings everywhere. Letting your heart open to include beings in the north, in the south, in the east, in the west, above and below, all beings everywhere. May they be happy. May they be peaceful. May all beings live with ease and freedom from suffering. Letting your own heart open and expand with radiant light and love to include all beings. Sometimes metta doesn't work. It's a practice. You can do it every day for years and still feel like you're faking it. And then one day it just clicks in. And you get it. Not in here, in your heart. Something just connects and your heart understands what it's like to love all beings. And it opens. And when you have that space in your heart mind, meditation becomes a lot easier.